Hello everyone, Wardes here, taking you into a new episode of the Gran Turisbros podcast. It's pretty interesting times. Gran Turismo 7 was finally shown off for the first time. Kaz introduced it as it always should be, really. And we're really happy to see that. I'm sure you're all hyped. Can't wait to do a big episode discussing all those possibilities that we can draw from that trailer. But for today, it's an episode dedicated to club racing, more specifically the International Gran Turismo League and their big event for this year, the World Series, that is going to be one of the most competitive things outside of the FIA that you can check out. So do check it out. Check them out on Twitter at IGT League and find all the information there. It's going to be quite an exciting thing. So I'm happy to come back to you again with a new episode. And if you haven't noticed already, do check us out on our GTPlanet home thread. You can find that link by going to bit.ly, bit.ly/GTBHQ. GTB as in boy, HQ. And once you get there, you'll be able to see all our new graphics. Our YouTube channel also, Gran Turisbros on YouTube, has all new graphics done by an amazing graphic artist from Mexico named Pixteca. Really, really cool stuff. We're excited to bring you the new face of the Gran Turisbros podcast to give you a new shiny kind of, I don't know. It's fun. It's cool. It feels great. New sheen, shininess. Smells good. But yes, again, thanks again. Long intro for you here. I try to keep them short, but I really appreciate you listening, and let's keep it going. We have another one that I'm currently working on getting out here soon as well. So plenty of insight and I don't want to say jovialness. Does anyone ever use that word truly in a casual conversation? No. So I refuse to use it here. But again, I'm ending this intro. I really appreciate you, and we will talk again soon. Have a good one. Hello everyone. Today I have two special guests with me, Lewis Bentley and GT-Alex, both organizers and part of the core of the International Gran Turismo League. They've put together a new tournament this year called the IGTL World Series, open invitation for anyone with an A+ driver rating. But I missed my chance because I wasn't able to take part in any of the 6 qualifying events. I just wanted to be a part of one at least, but I literally kept running into issues with that weekend. But it was really fun to track, and we saw some really good racing in those 6 essentially qualifying races, and it was extremely competitive. And 2 very dedicated guys to the community of GT, and it's good to have you 2 here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh yeah. So Lewis, why don't you go ahead and give us a little I don't know. Why didn't you say your name?
So I'm Lewis Bentley, LZR Lewis. Been around for a while since the start of GT Sport. A few world tours, and I've run a lot of community events.
Awesome. And Alex?
Yeah, so same. I've been in the GT scene since a lot of time, since GT5 for the online stuff. And nice. Then met Jomas online and joined the IGTL, which then grew to what it is today.
Yeah, a big community, which I'm sure you guys are proud of. That's one thing that people don't necessarily think about when from the outset of creating a championship. But because first you're thinking, I just want to have some cool racing, a few buddies join, and then they evolve into these massive entities of community that you're just surprised with. I'm sure. I mean, it turns into something that you could never have envisioned, right?
Yeah, I mean, IGTL, pretty much started like that, actually. Yeah, it was It started with a GT3 championship with two groups organized by Jonas. I jumped into that, and then he asked me if I could give him a hand, and then World Tours happened. So he brought more and more top drivers in that, and then it naturally evolved into the endurance races we did, and from that we decided we wanted to expand it to something more professional, and happened that Lewis actually had a similar idea as well, and he was already pretty advanced in his concept, so we basically decided to join forces, and that's how we created the IGTL World Series, basically.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, the structure, because the structure is very thoroughly mapped out, and you can see on your regulations document that a lot of thought's been put into the concept, so it's good to see a few people that were like-minded getting together to try to make it a reality. And why don't we just describe a little bit of some of the people that are involved in IGTL at this stage. We have Joe Moss, would you consider him the founder, right?
Yeah, pretty much the founder, and I'd say kind of the leader of relationships with external parties, pretty much.
Great. Yeah. He's a cool cat, and sorry we couldn't have him here today. He may have been busy or something, but I hope to have him on sometime in the future to talk a little bit about his past as well. But I'll just have you guys speak for him a little bit today.
Yeah.
Wicked at guitar too, which I appreciate. And he's really into mathematics, which is why it makes sense that he handles a lot of the results and stuff, and he does it so quickly too, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's terrifying how quickly he gets those sheets updated. I'm like, well, we won't have the results yet, so I'll stall a little bit on broadcast. Oh, they're here. That's sort of how it goes.
In and out. Yeah, and then you have Kenny as well.
Yeah, so Kenny helps out with a lot of the stewarding work that we do in the World Series races himself. He's also got insane internet, so he's often the lobby host, and that allows these lobbies to be almost like server quality a lot of the time. Like, you won't see a lot of jitter or lag in World Series races, and that is pretty much fully thanks to Kenny's internet being the way it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he helps out a lot behind the scenes as well. Obviously, some ways that you may not see conducted across in broadcast, but he's a really, really valuable member.
You all have looked into GT Sport and how it works. Like, you've all kind of been tapping around and at the structure of what makes GT Sport. In regards to club racing, you guys know better than most how, like, what the shortcomings are of the system, and that I just was interested about you mentioning Kenny's internet. So that does definitely make a difference in how well a lobby race is going to go down, right? If the lobby host,
the lobby, everyone connects through the lobby host, so it's really, really important that your lobby host is up to scratch, because if the lobby host has any sort of connection issues, those connection issues will be mirrored through every single person in the lobby, because everyone has to connect through them. And not only that as well, a lot of those getting stuck on the grid errors that you tend to see.
Yeah.
If you can't really get rid of them, because a lot of people do have connection incompatibilities. Sometimes you'll just have two people in the lobby where their two connections don't like each other. Maybe you'll get a guy from South America and a guy in Europe, and those connections just don't want to play. And there's not a lot as organisers you can really do to fix that. But what you can do is you can make sure the host sets up the best network environment possible. So some issues are solved by that.
Yeah, because when I see the title of the series and the group is international, it says a lot. Yeah. And that's something that in GT5 we never had regions, so we would organize and just anyone that could come, and we would deal with a lot of issues depending on where people were from. So it's a bolder kind of target when you're trying to include the whole world. But it's definitely great. I mean, that's what we all want. We want to break the chains that bind us, so to speak. I mean, it was 3 regions, and then it became 5. It's segmented, this new Gran Turismo community, differently than it was in GT6 and 5. It was a lot more inclusive, I felt like, back then. But that's why I appreciate, ideas such as this one, which try to bring people from all over the place together again.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there should be any limits on where you're from. I don't think the regional and country limits are a great idea on the FIA end. I think we should just let everyone around the world have that even opportunity. It doesn't matter where you live. Everyone should have that even opportunity. And then we see the best drivers in the world duke it out, and that would then theoretically lead to a better product. I know the argument for having limits is that then, everyone has someone from their territory to support. But I think, when you're trying to make a global esports competition, I think it's important to make sure that everyone has an even chance and not, you have a lesser chance because you live in this region versus this guy of getting to the finals. I like even opportunity for everyone. I think it's really important. So that's what I've, decided to push. Because the World Series is built on quite a lot of ideas that I originally pushed as feedback for like FIA in general. And then obviously I just sort of, maybe I can go at making this myself, Maybe we'll have a go at this and see how it goes. And it's going pretty well so far. So
yeah, it's great. It's becoming a moment in GT sport. And I applaud you guys for seeing it through. And we're still some time away from the start of it. The series is actually going to start in July on the 24th?
It is the Thursday of that week. Let me see. 23rd. 23rd will be our first GT4 Invitational race. Day following is our first GT3 Championship race on Friday the 24th.
Right. I was thinking about the first GT3 race on
Yeah.
Friday.
So the GT4 Invitational, of course, is the guys who didn't quite make it through to the GT3 Championship, but we want them to have the opportunity to race. So the GT4 Invitational race each round sort of acts as like the day before promo event of the race weekend, and then we have the GT3 guys on the day afterwards.
Right.
And then
everyone a chance to race.
At the end of the season, we'll have the final multi-class event. So it's going to be a good opportunity for the GT4 guys to be on track with the best GT3 guys.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I love multi-class racing. In GT Sport, it was always more of a niche kind of event online. But I think it would be really interesting to see how... Because it's more interesting when you see cars that are a little bit closer in performance. I mean, when it's like prototypes versus, Group 4 cars, it's like the passes are really, really quick. But it's more interesting to make... When 2 battles are happening on track between 2 different classes and they get near each other, stuff happens.
Yeah, and actually we BOP'd both classes to kind of make that multi-class race more interesting. We had to nerf the GT4 cars a bit because they would literally be able to overtake the GT3 in a straight line with slipstream originally.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a problem. So
we've gone back and made changes. We've been handling the BOP over the last couple of weeks, but our variant of GT3 cars are a little bit slower, but also a lot lighter than their FIA BOP variants. But our GT4 cars are faster in a straight line, because a lot of feedback I received from people doing Group 4 races is that the cars are a little bit too slow, they're a little bit too predictable. We've basically stuck a lot of power on those Group 4 cars. They can more or less stay with the Group 3 cars on the straights, however, obviously the downforce and cornering ability of the Group 3 cars will see them to be about 5 seconds a lap faster.
Wow, that is very interesting. It's going to be... some unique circumstances going to pop up in that race for sure.
Yeah, that's going to bring a lot of strategy, we think, for the GT3 guys. They may want to change their pit strategy to avoid like a pack of Group 4 cars on their way, But we'll see how that rolls.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, everyone is going to be really looking forward, and everyone's going to have that final race in their minds, like whether you you're maybe in the middle of the championship pecking order or toward the top, you know that you can't just kind of settle into the sort of performance that you've been doing before the final race. So yeah, that's a very unique element that you guys added there. So
Yeah, it kind of feels like the chase in NASCAR in some way.
Oh yeah,
well,
true.
Because we have a different point ladder for that race as well, so we'll definitely have a lot of weight in the championship.
For sure. And then, so Alex, in regards to IGTL, what would you say your role is in your own words and all that?
Oh yeah, well, basically we more than roles, we actually have more like our specialties, I'd say. Yeah, for me, I'm like more into graphics, stuff like that, like making stickers, making liveries, checking the graphic chart, stuff like that.
Nice.
But we basically, all of us touch pretty much everything. We pretty much all test the BOP, pretty much all look at the regulations, and basically, like Kelly likes to say, we bounce ideas in between us. So like everything someone comes up with is challenged by the others, and we change, we alter stuff. Sometimes we get rid of some ideas that aren't good enough. So yeah, in the end, there's a lot of brainstorming in pretty much every aspect of IGTL, and I think that's how we're able to make this work.
Yeah, I think another big part of that as well is the idea of actually shooting each other's ideas down, because obviously it's not always something that's pleasant to do, but I think it's something that's necessary. You know,
Yeah.
we bring a bunch of different ideas together, and then we shoot a lot of those ideas down, and we sort of then end up with the best of, if you will, of those ideas. You know, we're actively trying to troubleshoot different problems and before they happen, you know, and try and foresee things. We look at each other's ideas and go, actually, that won't work, but this is a better way of doing it. And by doing that, we've got more of a refined, I think, end product with, you know, because a lot of times things rely on outside feedback, but we're trying to come up with ideas ourselves and then shoot them between each other. And then we get a lot of that feedback process done internally before it's something that we put out there in front of people. And I think that works really well.
Yeah, so you have a great incubator going.
Yeah.
That does work well, and it's something that's rare to find too. So I'm glad you guys have that element going for your group there. One other person we would mention is Pierre Ayoub.
Ayoub, yeah.
Ayoub? I knew I was gonna say it wrong. Oh yeah. And just to touch on his specialties and skills.
You see those awesome intro videos that we have before the races start? Yeah, he is responsible for doing all of those. Helps us out with some other bits as well. But
the overlays, stream overlays and stuff like that.
I can't put into words how awesome and how much those videos add to the product. Yeah. You know, when I'm able to talk about the combo and, you know, our tire fuel slipstream values and all of that in front of it all being on the screen and the track being presented in a, you know, a really watchable way. I think it's awesome. It's really, really valuable. And it sort of brings the whole product up to that like next level outside of, you know, just randomly live streaming a lobby race. It brings it all together, makes it feel a bit more cohesive as a broadcast.
Yeah, at this point of the show, I can sense people being very interested in checking out for themselves what the series is all about. So I just want to drop some, just some promo on where we can go to find the content. So obviously, Twitter's a good place to start. You can find IGT League.
Yep.
That's their Twitter. And then from there, a lot of the races are split between Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah, so we do them live on Twitch, and then we do an edited down race only, start to finish, upload on YouTube the day afterwards.
Yeah, and the Twitch would be your personal Twitch, Lewis?
Yep. So LZR_Lewis on Twitch, and the YouTube is quite simply just Lewis Bentley to find those races.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
give
we
those a
have
follow.
also the French channels, which are A-Whoop's channels. So yeah,
French
basically
French
yeah.
language
Yeah.
commentary. Awesome. Yeah, because Joe Moss is French after all.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what else did I have written down here? Oh, well, I wanted to ask, because Lewis, you're essentially, it was kind of an idea bouncing around in your head, right?
Yeah,
At
more or
first.
less.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was, and I noticed in one of the announcements you said that it was something that came from a sort of whim, kind of throwing out an idea at the beginning of the year to now. So I just wanted to ask you, why do you create the championship at all?
I get a lot of enjoyment from it, and it's a way to sort of validate your own feedback that you've been firing at the FIA GT Championships for the last 2
Yeah.
years, and bringing it together and seeing if it really works. And that's been fascinating, just to see how that plays out. You know, when it's your own idea that's in action, seeing how people respond to it. You know, in comparison to that, not that we're trying to offer up a competition, because obviously we can't compete with the FIA GTC. That's ridiculous. But what we can do is give people that alternative if they so want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the whole idea behind any IGTL event, I'd say, making the races we would like to race ourselves, but it's come to a point where we're making those races, but we actually can't take part into them anymore because we have to be involved in so many things now. With these events.
When we introduced the fact that we were going to have that £500 prize pool, we sort of then all said to each other, look, we can't, as organisers, really compete in this anymore. Because previously in IGTL events, there would be IGTL staff members, of course, taking part.
Yeah.
But we decided that we're going to avoid that whole potential ugly situation of people, you know, accusing corruption and all this, we'll leave it at the side, we'll not compete, and then there's no way that you can question the integrity of the championship.
You're right. Like, nobody in our house or any of our friends or family also compete.
Yeah. I mean, even without looking at the prize pool of World Series, even in endurance races, we're driving less and less in them because it takes so much effort to put them along. So and especially Kenny has pretty much stopped driving since like
2018,
yeah,
more or less. Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, I've definitely had that happen before. It does feel weird to win your own series sometimes, though.
I couldn't deal with it. I don't know. I think I'd have to start throwing on purpose halfway through the championship if I thought it was going to happen. It doesn't feel right. You don't get any sense of joy from it. It's weird.
It is really weird. I had it happen one time for a single make Nissan S14 series that I ran. It was race modified. And I clinched it in Nürburgring. It was if I had walked everyone, it would have been even weirder. But clinching it, I felt good for like 2 minutes, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, I made this."
Yes.
Yeah.
Then so you mentioned the prize pool, so 500 euros to
£500.
Oh, it's pounds.
A bit more like, what would you say the conversion is right now, Alex? Somewhere around 600-ish? I don't know, it's a bit messy. Obviously,
say about
currency's changing
or something like that.
Yeah.
I can check it quickly, but
It's £500. So whatever that converts to in October when people actually win the prize pool.
It's variable. Yeah, you got to pick your time.
Depends how much 2020's screwed up the world by that point, I guess.
Yeah, do your part. Be an activist and help make sure the prize pool is still good.
It's actually 554.
That's not too bad. There you go.
Ah. Yeah, so that's a question that is always hitting people in this weird community that we have in GT Sport, because there is there's so few opportunities for making money in Gran Turismo. But how do you feel at this stage, since you've done the 6 events, qualifying events? Have you feel a difference in how people have approached this championship in the community or anything like that?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we've seen some people that you wouldn't typically see in league races. Every single race we've done in the series has had a full grid, completely full grid. We've had solid participation throughout, and we've had some guys who clearly put in a high amount of effort into this. Remember that you can only enter it if you're driver rating A+, which I believe, actually looking at the figures, is less than 3,000 people in GT Sport. So already we've limited the amount of entries by making it A+ only. So we have to make sure that incentive is there for people to actually want to come and do this, because if we're not careful, we risk alienating such a large part of the community that we don't have a full grid, So I think it acts as a really necessary component, and it's been interesting to see how people have reacted to that.
Yeah, I think it was a great move making it A+, because people that are on the bubble can obviously try to break through as well.
Yeah, it's that incentive to get out there and race online. But not only that, when we're sat in lobby qualifiers waiting for everyone to enter, if we made it A rank, even B rank, we're going to have way more entries than we do now, which is a lot more work for us. But then also, we don't feel like those A rank or B rank drivers would ever be the drivers qualifying for the race. We might get one outlier occasionally where one guy creeps in against all odds, but with the amount of extra work we have to handle with recording everyone's lap times and completing leaderboards and all this extra work, we didn't feel like that trade-off of allowing A and B drivers was worth the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely does. And so you've had a brutal qualifier that only allowed the top 2 from each race to get through as qualifiers.
Yep.
But you allowed also at the same time, that being said, you did allow people for multiple chances. And so the people that didn't make it into GT3 are going to be, you invited them for a separate series that's going to be happening with GT4 machinery.
Yeah, we went through the list of every single entry that we've had throughout our 6 events, and we thought, okay, who's enjoyed racing in this? Who's come out on several occasions, who's set a lot of qualifying lap times, who's clearly happy to be here, and who would we want representing our GT4 Invitational? So we just combed through the list of drivers. We picked the guys who've put on a fantastic display of sportsmanship, participation, and just in general, you can tell they're having a blast. And we picked those guys out so they're not missing out in the championship phase. And so now we've got 12 drivers in the GT3 championship, 12 drivers in the GT4 Invitational, which is 24 drivers in total, which are going to get to enjoy our championship phase here.
Yeah, some favorites of mine for sure. I mean, I was glad to see some American drivers in GT4. I mean, Cooper is obviously super dedicated, and he's a great
absolutely
league racer. And John as well. He's super knowledgeable and he's all about trying. I feel like he's like-minded with you, whereas he knows GT could be better, and he wants to help in any way that he can. So that's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing is, I have a complaint because we need diversity in your GT3 series because there are nothing but Europeans in there.
Yeah, we were actually pulling for Cooper at the end because we like the idea of having as many people represented as possible. But while we like the idea, of course, of having a wide variety of countries and regions, we're also not going to force it. And if someone is faster, they're
totally.
faster. Yeah. So, but obviously, we make sure to get Cooper and John in there. Into the GT4 Invitational because they showed up, they did a great job, and we're happy to have them. They were enjoying the races, so let's hope they put in a great show in the GT4 Invitational.
For sure. And it's cool seeing Danny in there from Malaysia as well. He's very active on Twitter in the community, always talking to everyone, being very positive, so it's cool to see him there.
Yeah, he entered every single qualifier. So at that point, and he managed to get into 2 of the races as well. So while we don't, obviously, given his past performance, we don't expect him to be near the front, but it's those kind of guys that drive the community, even though they're not the fastest drivers in the world, but these guys are really important.
Yeah, I mean, Danny's kind of a guy that came out of nowhere for us. Like, we personally, I didn't really heard about him before the World Series, and it was a pleasant surprise to have that guy come here and just do clean races and enjoy himself and have a couple decent results, if I remember well.
Very much surprised us. Like, he got a great mid-pack finish in the 5th one, starting from last in the grid and ended up like 6th or 7th, I believe it was. But yeah, he's a great positive member of the community. We're happy to have him on board. And again, it's just more representation from around the globe, so it's win-win in all situations.
Definitely. And I know it's early, but is there plans that you guys kind of have the inevitable? Because this is something when you're organizing an event like this, you're thinking, well, maybe it's too late to add this to this one, but maybe in the next iteration we may do this. Are you thinking about a sequel, so to speak?
We're taking notes and we're seeing things that work really well, things that maybe didn't work so well, but we're not getting any future plans for the time being, because obviously we're at a bit of a crossroad of games with GT7 just getting announced, the PS5 around the corner. If we're going to run another one of these series, it'd have to be next year, but we're not sure if obviously everyone's still going to be playing on their PS4, playing on GT Sport at that point. So we're paying close attention to that, and we're going to see how things play out.
Yeah, I mean, based off of the announcements, for, at this point, everyone's seen the Sony conference, or the presentation, and they didn't really give any sort of idea as to when GT7 will be coming out, so we may run into the case where we could be playing GT Sport for another, couple years. Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah, there's no indication right now. So it's sort of planned to, as you'd imagine, it's sort of difficult to plan ahead in that situation, because at any given point, we might have a bunch of guys leave for other games. We've even got other titles in the genre coming up. Obviously, ACC releases next week. Well, I've not been particularly positive on the console port of that, but I do recognise that it will be some guys' cup of tea, and we'll probably lose some members of the GT Sport community to that game. We've got Project Cars 3 later in the summer, which, again, might not be my thing, it's other people's thing, so we're going to have to pay attention to how the sort of console sim racing landscape plays out over the next few months.
Yeah, and it's also going to be what the important next step is, whether FIA is going to be continuing in the next one, but not only that, but we don't know if there's going to be a more official racing happening next year, since this year was kind of pushed aside.
Yeah, and there's no confirmed FIA series for 2021. I know I heard at the live events that it was originally a 3-year deal when it was first signed back in 2018. So until we hear otherwise, as far as we know, it's the end. So obviously, I'm not convinced it's the end at all. I think it will continue forward in some form, whether that's FIA branded or not remains to be seen. It's all speculation at this point, but it's something we've got to pay attention to and just, again, see how things play out before we really plan something.
Right. And I say that because if they do confirm some sort of official championship happening next year, whether it's FIA or not, that will, keep people playing GT Sport for at least another year. And people will still be definitely lost to other titles and stuff, but it won't be as quite a ghost town as if there were no official racing anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you two kind of meet? You guys have just been on IGTL together for the past was it a year? Or how long has it been now?
I originally jumped on their Discord server for endurance races back, what was it, early January of last year, I believe. It's about a year and a half. And then I just competed in their events as a competitor for a year. It was only earlier this year, around February, March time, where I joined the organising team with the World Series. But yeah, it's been a while. Obviously, I've known them for a long time now. I'm more of a recent face in the GT community. I've only been around since GT Sport. I'm not one of those old GT5 or GT6 vets, but I think I feel like I've been around long enough at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. GT Sport's a whole new paradigm, and it's never been like this before. So it's more than you're more than welcome, and we need all the different types of drivers and community members that we can get. So it's cool to see you pushing this forward and kind of making your impact on this community as a whole, and seeing what we can do with these club races when the organizers try really hard to make them as legit as possible. So
yeah.
And Alex, so you've been with IGTL from the start, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And then you you and I met on that Miata single make racing.
Miata, yeah.
That was really fun. And you have a Miata in real life, which I highly appreciate. Bursting through the Swiss Alps in your Mazda.
Yep. Perfect place to drive on. Pretty much.
Yeah, it really is. It sounds like a dream. I would love to do that sometime.
Doesn't sound like a bad life, to be honest. Yeah.
No, it really doesn't. And so, well, this is kind of bouncing back and forth, but I wanted to ask what the biggest challenge from starting with Alex in terms of general organizing for a championship. What is the biggest challenge in your opinion?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, because I've been organizing a series and championships since GT5 pretty much, but back then I was organizing more for a broader variety of driving skills. So like you would have like the equivalent of D drivers mixed with A plus drivers, and you had to find a way to make the thing enjoyable for everyone. So I remember basically engineering a ballast system just to fuck myself up.
Yeah.
For some series, yeah. But now we're kind of in a more professional kind of thing with a more homogeneous driver field. So it's a bit different, because then you really need to have everything perfect, like the balance of performance. You need to make basically, the thing is you need to tailor your event to your audience. I think that's the biggest challenge, actually. It's understanding who will be racing and what they want and what you can achieve with the field of drivers you have. I mean, we did an event for Renault recently. A few months ago, and it was very different to the classic IGTL races we did, because we had like pro drivers, but we also have people who literally got their PS4 shipped the day before the race.
Right.
So you gotta make something that will please everyone, despite them having various how do I say it? Basically, everyone is looking for something different, and so you have to craft an experience that will meet all of their expectations, basically. And when pretty much all the staff is composed of good drivers, you really have to put yourself aside and see it from another perspective, to have an event that pleases everyone. Because like I said, we do races that we would enjoy, but
Right.
you gotta make some compromises still. Because,
When you're being contracted by Renault, it's a different story. We can't make what we want to do anymore. It's more of, this has got to be beginner friendly. This has also got to come across well to people who have never watched a GT Sport race before. So we have to make sure that we're keeping, the amount of variables low and stuff to keep track of. And so it was those two races that we did for Renault, completely different to anything we'd ever host. There was no tyre wear, there was no fuel, no complexity at all. It was more or less a straight sprint race to the finish on two very simple combos. We had the Group 4 Renault on Red Bull Ring and the Group 3 RSO1 on Spa, and they were so simple. Such simple races, and that's so different to what we were used to doing, and we had to sort of resist from adding more complexity to it because it wouldn't be good for the newcomers. It's like, maybe we should have a bit of fuel. No, that's a terrible idea because they don't know that fuel changes braking distance and the feel of the car, and stuff like that. So,
and I mean, even in World Series, we kind of have that because we all have different tastes. Like you really don't like road cars. I love them. And I'm not into Group 1 cars, and you like them, or Thomas like them, stuff like that. So, sometimes you have to just do something you wouldn't really do yourself, but... and
then when you do that, sometimes you're surprised and you find that it's actually, wow, I do like this a lot. Maybe I wouldn't have given it the shot had it been up to me only.
That no ABS Stratos race was pretty neat. A lot of people weren't a fan. But it created a really interesting race dynamic, which was more entertaining to watch just because we didn't know what was going to go down in that race.
Yeah. And there was the special event 2 as well, which was pretty much the opposite of that. But that was before they fucked it up with the update.
That was a shame.
But before the update, it was a really fun combo to drive because we had the staggered tire setup, like the mediums on the front and the hards on the rear.
Hards rear.
It really turned that R18. That's the kind of cars I found boring, but having that staggered tire setup really made it interesting even for me.
That's cool. It's like a workaround to the physics feeling and little known.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then the update ruined it.
The day before, it was really unfortunate. Just to fill in sort of a bit of context there, an update hit the day before that race, which essentially halved the power of real slipstream, but the dirty air didn't change very much. So we had that Group 1 car now suddenly has all this dirty air, but no slipstream to help overcome that. So the race was basically a train all the way through, and we didn't plan a pit stop into it because originally the racing was fine, it didn't need that. But when you're one day before an event, it's also too late to change anything, because people have put time and effort into practicing this, and you have to respect people's time. So that event was kind of a dud, but I mean the two drivers that qualified through the GT3 Championship through that race were still very, very quick, very deserving. It just wasn't quite obviously as entertaining as we envisioned after that update.
Right. And you got thrown the curveball, the first big curveball from Polyphony. Came at the perfect time. The Renault thing. So I was going to ask you, so you had Ocon and Sainz racing, right? They were both team leaders, were they not?
No. So we had Esteban Ocon, and then it was basically a bunch of different internet personalities. We had members of the Team Vitality esports team, which were not GT Sport players. They had picked up the game the day before, had never seen a Gran Turismo in their life. So that was challenging for us because obviously as experienced players who've been in the game for a couple of years, you have to sort of usher in these new players and then make the experience as newcomer friendly as possible, but still make sure it's fun for them. We even had written guides for them on how to download the liveries for the events, how to find it through the Discover system. All these different guides that we wrote up just to make sure that those guys had a good time, and obviously we could still keep the event feeling and looking professional, because the liveries that were on those Renault cars had to be approved by Renault themselves. So we couldn't use stock liveries or anything like that. It all had to be perfect, because it was very much an official thing that did go on the Renault Sport YouTube channel, and made its way in front of about 100,000 or so subscribers. So it was the biggest thing we've ever done.
That's great.
It was a really fun challenge.
Yeah, because at the time, we're still somewhat in this time, but there were a ton of different sim racing events going on, and a lot of the focus was on iRacing. There was some R Factor racing that was going on that was arguably the most competitive, but it was good to see Gran Turismo get a slice of that, and it was great for you guys to be a part of it, and it was in good hands.
Yeah. So. One thing that was really interesting about that event as well is that it was tied to an esport team that's not into sim racing. Well, now they're a bit into it, because they have Nicolas Longuet, who's driving in the F1 Esports series, I think.
Yeah.
But right. Otherwise they're mostly Fortnite, Valorant, stuff like that.
Right.
It's a big esports team, but it ain't a sim racing team by any stretch of the imagination. So we've got these guys that you're calling on broadcast, you're calling them esports players, but obviously we had to make it very clear that these aren't racing esports players. A lot of them have never played sim racing in their lives, and we had to make it explicitly clear that they've literally been playing this game since yesterday, and we're throwing them onto the same grid as Esteban Ocon, who's obviously very quick, very experienced, had been racing with the Veloce guys, Susu and Storm, Miura the day before, some of the very, very quick guys, and keeping up with them. So that dynamic of throwing those two sorts of drivers onto the same track had very interesting results, but it was a lot of fun.
But what was interesting about that team being involved is they streamed the event on their own Twitch channel, and their audience is literally completely new to any form of racing, even real life racing. I think most of these guys weren't used to watch any form of racing, and I was quite surprised, because I was monitoring that stream and the chat, and these guys seem to really like it. They really appreciated the show. So I think it shows there's a great opportunity for sim racing to grow outside of the whole motorsport world scope, and I think that's a real shame. Other events aren't trying to cater to these new opportunities you could have with the esports community in general, not just the sim racing or the motorsport community. Because I really think by making good events, you could really make people from outside the motorsport community get involved into that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a matter of putting the game or the events in front of people's faces, and
exactly.
They just don't seek it out.
Yeah, I was fully expecting that chat to be a complete mess.
Right.
But actually, the chat that was a complete mess was the English stream on the Renault Sport YouTube channel, because for some reason all the French guys somehow ended up here, although it was an English.
It basically became a French chat. Yeah, I remember.
So it was really weird. And in the meantime, the non-racing community was really nice. They were really well behaved and very interested in the actual event.
Yeah, and I think that's a good. That would be a good thing to tell people that are into GT Sport already. that they should just kind of try to talk about their racing more and just expose it to more of their friends. Because for a while, I remember in GT5 and 6, I never really talked to anybody. Like I would mention it here and there to like friends of mine in real life, casual or whatever, and they wouldn't bite onto it too. It was kind of too hard to describe. But now that time is gone and esports has kind of matured as a concept, you can, because right now a lot of people think esports is one sort of thing, like maybe shooting game or whatever. But if you tell them no, there's like these awesome racers that are super dedicated and putting up amazing, fun, entertaining races to watch, you should check it out. I think it's worth revisiting and kind of trying to tell more people around you about it.
Yeah, but the thing is, sim racing is pretty much behind in terms of esports because it's trying too much to be a motorsport and not enough to be an esport, basically.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it doesn't need to be like Rocket League, but they could definitely spice it up.
Yeah.
And well, that was the an interesting. Oh yeah, well, I wanted to discuss some of the gripes that you guys may have with GT Sports. I'm sure there's a lot to pick from, but in terms of organizing a club event, what are some of the shortcomings that you find the most kind of head scratching, and the things that you're really just most frustrated with? Starting with Lewis.
There's quite a few things. Obviously, I think at its core, the fact that we have a lot of lobby features that are locked away from us, which I've seen in action because at a couple of the live events, I'm able to get onto those rigs after the show's over and really go through some of the game settings. Obviously, they're running a different build of the game at the live events. You go to open a lobby on those systems and there are twice the settings, and some of those settings, there's zero reason why we shouldn't have them. Stuff like rolling start distance, tyre temperature settings, allowing or disallowing, with tyre requirement. There's also enabling the pit line. Obviously, not the pit line, the penalty line that's in FIA races. They have that as an on-off switch to enable. There are so many things that they have access to in creating a lobby, which for some reason is not on the client version of the game. And then obviously there's also all the spectator camera angles, additional features that they seem to have and not put in the game as well. And the reasoning that I've heard for this is that they want their product to look like it's above community products. Like they don't want viewers getting confused looking at community products like it's the real, FIA GTC. And I think that is an absolutely baffling stance on the issue. I think growth for Gran Turismo is good for everyone. And I think by giving the community better tools, you create more growth for yourself because not everyone likes the FIA GTC. So by increasing the quality and the value of an alternative within GT Sport, you're still ultimately drawing more people to GT Sport. And I think growth for everyone works here. So this decision that they've done at a design level to give us more casual variants, I'll say that, of lobbies is a decision that I really, really disagree with. And
strange. Because if their aim is truly to make sure that the official events are set apart from any others, then you would think that they would want to allow even more variables for players to choose from, because then that would set them. Because then you'd more obviously be able to see that a club event was happening, because you notice like, oh, this isn't happening. I never see this in the live events, but they're doing it over here. So, it seems counterproductive.
There's even more settings that I've not mentioned that they have access to. The grid rundown you see at the start of FIAs, that's literally a lobby setting that we don't have. So many things. I've never really gotten a straight answer as to why. I've just heard of answers from other people as to who have literally asked, and it just seems like they want their product to be separated, and this is something that's intended. And it's just I can see their perspective. I get it. Like, you want your product to look official, so it needs to look like it's above community products. If you think that, you know, your product being above and beyond is beneficial to you, but people who don't share that opinion, like me, where I think any focus on Gran Turismo is good, and it doesn't matter whether it's the FIA GTC or someone enjoying lobby races. Obviously, I completely disagree with that stance, but I can see why they do it. I really wish they didn't.
Right. It definitely is counterproductive. They would have more people. If more people had an ability to play the game the way that they wanted to, especially with a community or a club, there would be a lot more engagement, and it wouldn't detract from the official events at all, because it would just be the thing, you know, it would just be the pinnacle of what they love to play. Rather than some, that's definitely strange.
Fun fact: those lobbies are 24-man as well. When you go on to
that's the thing.
You go on the slider. You know the slider we have right now to limit a max number of players, and you can go 2 to 16. You click that on their version, and it's 2 to 24. So it's one of those things where that one may be more of a technical reason, but to see it there in the game working, obviously at these live events, and then go home and then not have access to that is really frustrating.
When you have an esports game and you try to grow it as an esports, you should really have a product that actually looks like your public release. And I think the fact that GT Sport looks different in the live events than it does when you're actually playing the game is a bit of a problem, because when you see the successful esports titles such as StarCraft or Overwatch or Fortnite, stuff like that, pretty much all the tools they're using for their official events are available to the average player, pretty much. So as an average player, you will feel more involved into that when you see the actual events. And I think GT Sports should try to go more towards that.
Yeah, I agree. And this lack of cars in public lobby events is definitely something that doesn't need to be the way that it is. Like Lewis had touched on, you can go up to 24 cars in those local versions of the lobby. So I think the community would really appreciate that, and I think it's definitely doable as well.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is we don't really have the same networking architecture between even FIAs and lobbies, pretty much, because FIAs have actual servers, but lobbies are pretty much peer-to-peer. So obviously you have additional limitations coming up from that. But I think with GT7 coming, they will definitely have to improve on that.
Yeah, and then that's a great point to jump off of, because GT7 is going to come, and there are definitely things that everyone has in mind when it comes to what the priority and improvements should be, in their opinion. So what are you kind of looking forward to most being addressed yourself there, Alex?
Well, as I said already, I have more cars on track, every mode, online, offline. I think it's really primordial. I don't think you really need to have like 60 or 80 like they done for some ACC events on PC. I think that's too much, but like in 25 to 30 would be already really nice and allow people to do really interesting things. Would improve a lot the multi-class events as well, because right now on GT Sport, we have 16 slots lobbies, but then if you want to broadcast your event, if you want to have live stewards, you're taking a few slots of that. So realistically, you will have like 12 cars on track. So if you pick a medium to a long track, it would feel really really empty. And so if you want to do multi-class racing in GTS, you pretty much have to stick to really short tracks.
Yeah, true. For the action to really get going.
Then I think apart from that, most of the improvements they can make, more than improving the game itself, would be to improve the way they manage it. Because I think the Gran Turismo core they have right now has a lot of potential, but they keep a lot of that locked away from the players, as they was mentioned earlier. So that's really what they need to do. They just need to unlock the potential of the game and just make a game that works, basically.
Right.
Basically, just having a Gran Turismo but that works properly in most circumstances would be great.
Yeah, that would be a positive outcome for sure. And I think GT7 could benefit from a long kind of beta period as well. We had a beta for GT Sport. It lasted, I believe it was like 3 months. I forget.
I think they were actually 2 beta periods. There was a closed beta on invitations, and then a more open beta. I didn't play any of them because I didn't have a PS4 at that moment. But
yeah, I was a part of that closed beta, or closed in. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was part of the very first beta, and they had a message board that they sent a link out to for people to go onto, and I was blown away because it was the first sort of it was the first form of openness from Polyphony that I've seen, as far as, at least when it comes to Western community goes, because they had an English forum and they allowed people to put in their opinions. So
Polyphony and communication is a long story.
Yeah, it really is.
But I guess, I guess Lewis will have more intel about that than me.
Yeah, are you there, Lewis?
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole. It's a very deep rabbit hole, because I've had, let's just say, we'll leave it here, but I've had conversations at length with PD employees about the game, and they don't really go too far. Let's just say that they have their own particular vision, and they're not really interested in any sort of compromises to that vision. I think that's what I'll say. So I think a lot of this stuff, and a lot of the impressions that you get on communication from PD online is sort of how they operate as well. You know, they sort of have their way, and that's the way they're going to go about doing it. And in terms of outside influence, they're not too interested. They have their path and they're going to walk it, you know?
Yeah, so it was interesting for you to kind of, and being a newer player as well to the whole competitive online world of GT, as limited as your experience has been, you got the same impression as we all have had for so long. And running into it being an actual truth in your discussions with the developers must have been kind of interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's something that everyone's always kind of had a gripe with in general, just lack of communication, I mean, and in some ways it benefits their development style, but in a lot of other ways, and especially regarding the online side of things, if they're not a little more open to allowing this sort of input, then they're just going to be doing, like turning their wheels in the mud, so to speak. So it could benefit them a lot if they were to just take in more of what we have to say, because we are the players out here doing it all the time, right?
Yeah. The main discussion I had was I've pushed the idea of not having country or regional locks at all in the competition, and I've had that discussion at length. That was at the end of the Salzburg 2019 World Tour. I had a long discussion with one of the developers, and he more or less stonewalled the idea. He was saying that it's designed in a way that it is to create a global competition, because they want to force guys from Oceania and guys from South America into the competition. But obviously, I've said earlier on in this podcast, I'm much more of a fan of giving everyone equal treatment. I'm not interested in where you live. I'm interested in, the racing. I would just want to see the best players in the world race. I don't think we should be treating people differently around the world just because they live in different countries. I think it's rather silly. But I've put that point out there and spoke to them in person, and I'll tell you that they don't want to hear it. So that's the way that is, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can see their intentions, but I can also see the frustrations that come about from it.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing is still probably Amsterdam.
Oh
Amsterdam?
Yeah, that was interesting. They invited 10 European drivers to Amsterdam early last year. There were some things that they got raised as points, such as having a rally race in World Tours. And this was all obviously directly opposed by a lot of the drivers that they invited out for feedback. They were invited for the sole purpose of feedback. And stuff like the rally racing, stuff like the tuning, and there's some other things that were brought up, like BOP methods. And it seems that a lot of the guys who were at that Amsterdam summit have come away from it since saying that the PD haven't acted on any of their feedback whatsoever that was given at that event. So I think it just comes down to the nature of the studio, to be honest. It's the way that PD operates. You can't sway them, and that's sort of what we're going to have to live with as players of Gran Turismo, I think, to a certain extent. There's a lot that I don't agree with, but I'm more or less at the point now that I realise I'm not going to sway their product, which is sort of, where the inception of the World Series came from, in that their product's not getting swayed, so let's apply my own feedback and my own methods to my own product. And now, we're out here as an alternative. And again, it should be repeated, the fact that we're not trying to directly oppose PD with the FIA GTC, but I want to offer like-minded players a race series that I would want to race in, and that's sort of the whole idea behind that.
Yeah, and I think you've succeeded, even though the racing hasn't even begun yet. But you've succeeded in growing the community, and IGTL has succeeded in contributing so much in the structure and the skill and the talent that surrounds the organization. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope that people that are listening to this podcast are as well. As I had mentioned before, IGTL is on Twitter. It's IGT League. Check them out on there. Definitely give a follow to Alex and Lewis for being so kind to donate their time for this podcast and for us to get the chance to know them a little better. Was there any last sort of takeaways that you'd like to put out there, Alex or Lewis?
Just thanks for having us on. It's always great to talk about this sort of thing. I'm always happy to talk about this sort of thing. But it's been a lot of fun. I had a blast.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, it's great to be able to discuss about our history and potentially our future as well. And overall, just making our community events be known to new people potentially. So thanks for allowing us to do that.
Yeah, they most certainly are, and you're very welcome. And let's do this again once maybe we're around racing time. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
Worries.
Yeah, cool. All my best to you and yours. Everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you again later.